Actually, somebody last week. Did you see that Rumble fight at all?
No, I didn't.
Somebody last
apparently
week.
He was getting his ass beaten, and then he came back.
The dude broke his arm, whooping Rumble's ass. Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody else had a very good tweet. They were like, "This guy, I'm forgetting his name now. God, it's so funny that he just got arrested, like because he came to that event. That is really funny." Jose Augusto. So somebody said Jose Augusto was in the position, like had two possible fates. He could either be.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Augusto's destiny. It was Fino's guy. Augusto's destiny had two paths: the guy who beat Rumble with only a left hand, the single guy who made Rumble overcome adversity.
Yep.
It's a very cruel position to be thrust into by fate. But it all makes sense now. It wasn't Augusto. Yeah. It was that.
It wasn't Rumble after all.
It was, some guy named like TJ or something in Connecticut.
Yep.
Who's very tough. Who went to go do like a real estate deal and just folded up like a fucking carpet and didn't know why. Couldn't explain why his usual aggressive deal making was nowhere to be found. He's like, why am I a pussy now? And why do I want to hit a woman?
There's a tremendous like trading places / Prince and the Pauper story to be done here.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right. All right, everyone, or should I say hello. I'm your host, Connor Rebush. With me, as always, is Phil McKenzie, and we are talking to you today on this week's edition of Heavy Hands about Michael Chandler versus Chucky Olives himself, the main event of UFC 262, and several other fights from that card as well. Very, very intriguing contest that we have basically just spent 30 minutes trying unsuccessfully to completely wrap our heads around. I think that will end up making for a pretty interesting first segment on this week's episode. So look forward to that. Oliveira versus Chandler for the vacant lightweight title. After that, we are going to be discussing Ferguson Dariush, Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza, maybe a little something else before returning to a review of last week's Rodriguez versus Watterson card. And I don't know, Phil, maybe we'll say something about Canelo. Maybe we'll say something about Anthony Johnson, who clearly last week stole the identity of a much tougher, more resilient man, and then was subsequently arrested after his successful MMA comeback. We will get into whatever of that we can. But first of all, Phil, Oliveira versus Chandler. It's a puzzler. It is a puzzler. It is probably, I'll put it this way. It's a funhouse mirror match. If that
that seems about right.
If that makes sense. It's a mirror match, but you certainly wouldn't know it at a glance. But it just in a lot of ways, right? There are a lot of the same weaknesses present for both of these fighters. I think the first thing to say, and then I'll throw it to you, Phil, for your thoughts. I think we both agree, and I think anyone who knows anything about fighting would take one glance at this and agree with us as well. Pressure is the word. Even more so than in most MMA fights, and listeners of the show may know that, it's my opinion that pretty much every MMA fight is about who comes forward. That is like one of the most fundamental rules of this sport, especially here. Who comes forward will be the person who controls the fight. And against such a potentially fragile opponent, it really could be everything. So pressure. What do you think of that, Phil? And what do you have to add as we try our best to get into this puzzler?
I mean, if we think of the move in MMA as being towards one of not just pressure and initiative, but just simply offense.
Yeah.
These are two of the most uniquely offensively dynamite fighters that you get. And I think in a lot of ways that's just true of the lightweight division as a whole towards the top, right?
Mm.
The matchups are decided, less due to a sort of interplay of skills, and often down to just who has the more overwhelming skill in a singular area,
right.
who has just more offensive tools in the box, and these guys are both willing wrestlers, they are both willing strikers, they are both people who thrive putting their opponents' backs to the cage, and all in totally different ways.
Yeah. Both incredibly offensively potent, but at the same time, both kind of defensively elapse. And
defensively lackluster and frail in the weirdest ways, like both of them. Oliveira, tendency to sort of fold in fights and basically give up to weird stuff. And Michael Chandler has you mentioned before we started recording, the Anthony Pettis thing of just like bits falling off him in fights and just being taken out by super strange stuff.
It is like there's an episode of the X-Files, Phil, where people, like a select group of people, have discovered the ability to go incredibly fast. So fast that they can essentially stop time. And these people are marked out by their bodies degrading from the strain of moving as quickly as they do.
Wow.
And that is Michael Chandler.
It really is.
Like within fights and over the course of his career, you get the sense that he is like so athletic that his body is just destroying itself. He's consuming himself for fuel. We were talking about this before regarding his pace, and I think that may be a major thing here. We were asking the question, does Chucky Olives gas? And I'm not sure he does. I think it's generally more of a psychological thing. Whereas with Chandler, as you put it, I think, Phil, no one can match Michael Chandler's pace, especially not Michael Chandler. He is such an athletically dependent fighter, so reliant on explosion and so willing to explode that, he just he tears chunks out of himself even when he's winning a fight.
He is he's an explosive fighter, but he doesn't conserve that like a Romero or a Woodley or anything like this, or even a Chad Mendes. No. He is instead blitzing forward the whole time, throwing himself into sometimes not particularly advantageous wrestling situations and just powering through them.
Yeah.
He is perfectly willing to just splurge energy and power because he's fairly sure that whoever he's up against just won't be able to survive it.
Right.
Even if he doesn't finish them, they're going to be tired from just dealing with him.
Right.
That is at least almost always true.
Yeah. That they're at least going to be working with a lesser reserve of power than him. It's like a weird fusion of like Khabib and like a souped up Dennis Bermudez. I don't even know who to compare Michael Chandler to. He is, they're just two very weird fighters, goddammit. Two very weird fighters. Who has had a stranger career than Michael Chandler while still being so consistently impressive? The guy's foot fell off against Brent Primus and he was KO'd in a minute by a featherweight, but he's still clearly one of the best lightweights in the world.
I mean, I thought he might be done against Will Brooks.
Oh my God.
The second time.
Maybe the weirdest ending to a championship fight we've ever seen in this sport. I mean, or at least on a par with something like Chael Sonnen versus, Paulo Filho. Was that it?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like he was legitimately having like a mental breakdown in the cage.
Yeah. Something just got dislodged in his head.
And then he came back and he's had a championship career like twice again at Bellator. And now he's fighting for the title in the UFC. Who can explain it? All right, so let's talk about the dynamic of the fight. We'll try to compare these two in a more head-to-head fashion, which they will be comparing themselves this weekend. Pressure, as we said, is the most important thing. What are the pressuring tools? How do these guys seize the initiative and the momentum and put their opponent on the back foot? And who do you figure will do that more successfully?
One of the things you really notice about Chandler is that, again, he is one of these fights where all his recent success pretty much has come with his opponent's back to the cage.
Yeah. And
he's got better at pushing people there. And essentially what we're talking about, as we mentioned in the Hooker fight, is he's gotten better at working behind his jab and kicking, but mostly this is big shifting entries to cover space. So
can we define a shift for any listeners who may not know what a shift is?
Essentially stepping forward into so moving your rear foot into your front foot position, stepping forward into another stance, so your rear hand is now your front hand.
Stepping through, usually with a punch.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So he's a big overhand guy and likes to throw these from either stance. And so normally it is just using either footwork or the threat of explosion to push people back to the cage, and then exploding into them, which is sort of inverse Tyron Woodley or Woodley, which makes sense.
Sure. Bizarro Woodley. That's Michael Chandler.
Well, Chucky Olives is one of those guys that I'm sure Joe Rogan will say is classic Muay Thai.
And very technical, because look where he holds his hands, Phil.
Yep. But anyway, high guard, stands very tall, very accurate, become a much more accurate striker still. Like, neither of these guys are defensive wonderkind, but he's a big, jab, cross, and kick guy. Uses his range a lot. Very gangly.
He's honestly just, he's become a much more subtle offensive striker, I think. It is the jab and the cross, but there are a lot of ways of playing off of that. Whereas I think Chandler has a few tricks. I want to give Chandler credit as a striker, because over these last few years, I think one of the things that has kept him so competitive, despite all the weird results, is that he does continue adding a sense of layers to his striking. The threat of that explosion does a lot of work for him, but he doesn't rely on it crudely. Not too crudely anyway. He'll throw a shot away to land the follow-up, as we saw against Hooker. He will jab in. He will, for example, jab to the body to set up certain openings, or as he did against Hooker again, throw right hands to the body to set the left hook up upstairs. He just really, really needs to be on the front foot for all of these ideas to kind of marry and come together. But Oliveira, man, we're seeing feints to set up uppercuts when he noticed his opponent ducking the cross. We're seeing punches into the Thai clinch. Ryan Wagner just had an MMA technique orgasm at the sound of those words. Yes, the Thai clinch. There's a lot of, creativity, I guess, has always kind of been the word with Charles Oliveira, but more than ever, we're seeing that in his striking as well. Also punches to set up kicks, punching off of kicks. We're seeing a lot more depth in the striking out of Oliveira, and I would say more so than Chandler has. But, as you said, defensively, both really, really wanting. Charles Oliveira has the guard of Martin Kampmann, and his defense is almost as good.
Yes.
Uh-huh. if you know what I mean. So
I definitely do.
Yes. All right. This is a question that adds to that then. All right. We've talked about sort of the pressuring tools. Chandler's going to threaten that explosion. He can cut off the cage relatively well. He can throw away something to hide the explosion in a second or third layer. and he can set it up with other explosive tactics. What is a response to that? Because I think this is a very important question when you come to a fight where pressure is everything. Either one guy's going to pressure and just win the fight outright, and that may happen. If that happens, I suspect it's a little more likely that Chandler is the culprit. He hits really hard. He loves to throw overhands and leaping left hooks, and he may just go Joe Frazier on Charles Oliveira's ass. But most fights, you get momentum shifts. No one is going to be in the driver's seat the entire time. So what are the different responses these guys have to get themselves in control of a fight? Who's a better comeback fighter? Even not even a drastic comeback, but just moment to moment.
Ooh.
Right?
That's the thing. It's really hard to characterize either one of these guys as comeback fights. I think Chandler is definitely the grittier guy. I think he also has the advantage of just being the I've been genuinely impressed, as I think I said before the Hooker fight. Chandler really thinks about his opponents.
Yes.
And in this way, I think he compares favorably. And again, I said this before we started recording. He kind of compares favorably to Dan Henderson. Mm-hmm. Dan Henderson didn't have a deep tool set at all.
Right.
But he really thought about what his opponents brought to the table, and he really had defined game plans for them.
Mm-hmm. You got a lot
of different approaches. Subtle changes. Yeah. Subtle changes in the ways he was deploying his tools.
Yeah.
When he would fight people. I think Chandler does do that. But I mean, Oliveira has just an obvious stylistic advantage, which is that he can fight in the center of the cage. He doesn't back up. He is simply he has the longer, more reliable weapons. And he's a really good kicker. And Chandler's, you mentioned, defensive advantage of these guys is not great. Chandler does not have good defense to kicks.
No.
And pretty much a lot of it is trigger takedowns, which it seems quite dangerous against Charles Oliveira. Not necessarily a death sentence. Chandler has never been submitted.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've mentioned before, if you can hold Oliveira down, he does sort of tend to stop working and give up.
I think the difference in resilience is that Chandler, they can end up in very much similar positions, but Chandler just doesn't accept that he's dead. So we have seen people take over against Chandler, and Chandler almost comes back by virtue of just still being there after letting the opponent crash into him. Like the first Will Brooks fight, things are going disastrously for Michael Chandler in round 3. And you would think if this is a guy who's not good at staging comebacks that it's just done, but it's not. He just happens to still be there in round 5, and I think that may have been a swing round in that fight. Charles Oliveira, I think, has basically a lot more depth everywhere, but we have at least seen periods in his career where he has just accepted that something terrible is happening and he would like it to be over now, please. Now, we have to give Chucky Olives credit because you and I are big on the psychological sort of profile of fighter styles. And we pointed out last time, pretty much every time Charles Oliveira fights, in fact, that he might fold. And let's give the man some credit. It hasn't happened since Paul Felder in 2017. And there have been more than we've seen throughout the rest of his entire career leading up to this period. There have been plenty of moments where he could have. David Tamor fight, the Kevin Lee fight, which as you said before, and I kind of agree, I think he was just about to break. I think he was just about to break against Tamor as well. I think he was even just about to break in the second Nick Lentz fight, back in 2015. There was just a brief period where Lentz had him against the cage and was just sort of wailing away, and Oliveira started to turn his back and shy away. something convinced him to get back in that fight. I think the more depth we see developing in Oliveira's striking, the more confident he seems to be that he can take a shelling and answer it. It's almost the ground I'm more concerned about. That if Chandler can get him down, and defeat a few submissions and start pounding on him, that is, I think, where Oliveira may still really be foldable. But I don't know, like, my surface level read on this was kind of that the wrestling might cancel out. Both these guys are not only capable on the ground, and yes, we have seen Chandler out grapple some really good grapplers. Both are phenomenal wrestlers. Okay, so let me give a couple of my thoughts, and lead up to a pick here. I think Oliveira's better off the back foot. I think that's an incredibly dangerous place to be against Chandler. As you noted at the very top, he knocks people the hell out when he gets their back to the cage. And Oliveira can still be put there. The dangerous moments against David Tamer, the one I mentioned against Nick Lentz, all of those happened up against the cage. But we have seen Oliveira regain momentum with counterpunching. I think that's been one of the biggest improvements to his game, is that counterpunching is like a key, or like a doorway back into pressure for Oliveira. That's how he seems to think of it, and I think that is exactly the right way to think of it for a fighter like him. He will pull, come back with a hard combination of counters, and if the opponent backs up, he will greedily devour that space and try to put himself back in command. He is also, I think, a better reactive takedown artist. You mentioned before Chandler's one of his few responses to being on the end of a longer fighter's kicks, being takedowns. I think Oliveira is a better takedown artist off the back foot in general. You don't need to give him a leg. He's got a surprisingly quick level change and a really strong drive for a guy with his frame, and is also
and there is a physiological question that would make it difficult for someone like Oliveira to just hit takedowns on Chandler, but he's much taller than him. Will Brooks did it, and because Michael Chandler, when he is level changing, kind of sprint, as we've mentioned, explodes through the air with his hips behind him and his head out in front, and can be level changed under.
It is a fundamentally
would not be surprised to see.
Yeah. It's just, there's no way to not be open to a counter if you fling yourself around as willingly as Chandler does. And yeah, like you said, we saw Will Brooks do that. A lot of them were reactive shots as Chandler was pressuring. He would come in with a big feint. He sort of looks like, Chandler ends up in a lot of moments that look like the Pacquiao-Marquez knockout from their fourth fight. It's these big pump feints, and he's just gearing up to leap through space, and he just runs into something. And typically for Chandler, it's a takedown, not a punch, but sometimes it's a punch as well. And the results are the same. You're going to get countered if the opponent, if you're flying through the air and the opponent can time it, it's going to happen. So I think Oliveira has the better recovery tools, so to speak. And that is a major reason why I think I'm going to pick him here.
Yeah, I find myself leaning Oliveira as well, because if I look back at things like the Benson Henderson fight that Chandler had, that was when I think, based on their first fight, Bendo decided he wasn't going to get pushed back into the cage as easily.
Right, because he got chewed up there.
When he fought in the center with Chandler, he was mostly chewing him up.
Yeah.
Then he is Benson Henderson. He is going to take a break and back up and rely on his weirdness to save him, and push his hair out of his eyes. So he backs into the cage, and then he just instantly died. But that was something that he got away with multiple times in their first fight. He ate kind of the same shots, but he was no longer durable enough to survive that.
You say that. I don't think there's that clean of a way to explain it. That's the difficulty with picking a fight like this.
Yeah.
Then, was he less durable, or did it just work the first time despite it being a worse fight? or a worse strategy. I don't know.
Yep.
But he definitely had lots of success is the main point when he was in the center of the cage. And yeah, and if we spend time there, if it comes down to a head-to-head battle for pressure and both guys are standing their ground, Oliveira still has the reach and especially the kicks. And that gives Oliveira, I think, a major advantage. This is the other thing you talked about at the very top of this segment. MMA today is not just about pressure, it's about offense. And combining the two, that means it's often about volume. And having the reach advantage, and being less reliant purely on explosion means that Oliveira, when they're in a more neutral kind of fight, he is going to be the one who has the volume advantage. That's my expectation. I don't think that's crazy at all. Michael Chandler is a lower output, higher impact fighter. So, but I still think if somebody gets flattened early, it's probably going to be Chucky Olives. I just think
This was the last thing I was going to say. So we've specifically called out the fact that he is a big, tall, upright person who doesn't get out of the way of punches. The three people he has fought who I would describe as quick space covering blitzers. He has, admittedly, two of them were fairly far back in his career. They are Frankie Edgar, Cub Swanson, and Clay Guida. And these people did not have problems hitting him.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he is a much better striker than he was then. Is he a much better, defender if you just run up at him and try and punch him in the face?
Right.
Because mostly it seems to be that it's largely picking shots off with jabs and straight punches from a distance.
Yeah.
His eyes for when to land are much better.
Yes.
His ability to get out of the way is not necessarily that. So again, Chandler is well prepared. I fully expect him to come out and just feint left hand and then leap into the biggest overhand right he's ever thrown.
Oliveira's got
because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, the newfound comeback ability doesn't mean shit if the first gamble works remarkably well. And say one thing for Michael Chandler, he is willing to commit. He will make that gamble count.
And if you look at that Cub Swanson knockout and tell me that Michael Chandler cannot do that,
right,
would be you are just lying.
Yeah, or the Tamer knockout that almost was with just a slightly harder hitter who commits harder. Absolutely. The window is there. I think it's a fantastic fight. It's perplexing in the best way. I really hope it doesn't. Hope it doesn't end early. Yeah.
Hope it is a crazy war. I hope Chandler's leg doesn't fall off.
Yeah.
I hope Chandler doesn't just club Oliveira in the face. I would love to see some scrambles.
Oliveira's mysterious clavicle injury doesn't come up again when he gets hit.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It has such potential for just an absolutely insane war.
Yeah.
I hope it isn't just someone getting their offense rolling early and the other one being unable to stop it.
Yeah. The longer it goes on, though, favors Oliveira. The more the more even it is, I feel like it favors Oliveira. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think Chandler's chances, despite the fact that he is the mentally tougher guy, I think his chances are definitely the best early.
Right. What a weird fight and a fascinating one. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to get, hopefully a little more quickly, I think, into Tony Ferguson versus Neal Dariush. We didn't talk actually as much as I expected about Chucky Olive's fight with Tony Ferguson, but we'll definitely have occasion to discuss it pertaining to that matchup. We've also got featherweights Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza, and after that, last week's fights, boxing, MMA, whatever it is that we end up touching on. We will do that later on after this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
Then welcome back to Heavy Hands. We are now on to the co-main event of UFC 262. That being T-Ferg versus Longback Benny. I'm never going to be we're never going to have as many nicknames as the co-main event guys, but that won't stop me from trying, Phil. And like the co-main event guys, I've stolen all the good nicknames from people who listen to the show. So what do you make of this?
Never be scared to outsource.
That's right. So we talked just before, we took our break, or at least I talked, saying that Tony Ferguson is, we have to, there are lessons to take away from his last fight and the one before. And I think a good part of figuring out how this fight plays out is, it comes down to figuring out those last two losses. Because I think we both agreed earlier that were this 2015, we would not pick Neal Dariush over Tony Ferguson.
No.
Yeah.
Because Neal Dariush is pretty much worse Rafael dos Anjos. And Tony Ferguson beat Rafael dos Anjos. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it. Yeah, Tony Ferguson is, as I was saying before we started recording, he's sort of the lever around which a lot of the meaningful stuff around this card rotates. Like both, this fight, obviously.
Yeah. Such a
but
barometer
also,
for the lightweight division.
Yeah. Like, he's been such a measuring stick for people coming through that, you have to ask yourself, how much is it worth? Mm-hmm. He is Charles Oliveira's, main elite win. Charles Oliveira also beat Kevin Lee, but Al Iaquinta beat Kevin Lee. And so, the question is really, how shot is Tony Ferguson? And I think really the answer has to be, he's pretty fucking shot.
He seems pretty goddamn shot. He is 37 years old. His career began in 2008. And it's not even been a typical career. There have been a lot of fights against top 10 competition for a very long time. And his entire career has been marked by his willingness to soak up damage. And that had only increased going into, say, his fight with Donald Cerrone, which both you and I find to be a sort of a viscerally unpleasant experience, I think. Even though it's on the surface a great action fight, it's just like I don't know. It's like two men battling their demons in the form of an opponent. And then that kind of leads directly into the fight with Justin Gaethje and the fight with Charles Oliveira. And against Gaethje, it was like, I think there's a good chance we look back at that and it's like, this is the last time Tony Ferguson did anything impressive. I hope that's not the case.
But even then, we're talking impressive. He didn't win a round.
No. Well, he arguably won the second.
No one gave him that round.
Yeah, it's the only one where there's a case where you could say, oh, he got a knockdown, so I'll give him that round. But yeah, even then.
Other than that, he's genuinely entering into Tyron Woodley territory.
Yes.
He has currently lost 8 rounds in a row.
Yeah. Lower output, more fragile, just as hittable as ever, but with greater consequences. And then we sort of saw the combination of all of those where not only could he not take over early with the pressure and the striking and just the sheer crazy variety that has always marked Tony Ferguson's striking, or that has increasingly marked his striking, I should say. The man started pretty much as a boxer. Not only did that not take over the fight against Chucky Olives, but then we saw the return of a kind of loss we hadn't seen in quite some time. Like the almost loss to Danny Castillo, which I think a lot of people agree he probably should have lost, although it really depends how much you care about top control, because it was a really neutral fight otherwise. But, yeah, if Tony Ferguson doesn't have like at this point, like more fable, I think, than reality, like secret weapon of crazy scrambleness on the ground, and he doesn't have the pressure that usually made that aspect of his game look like a secret weapon in the first place. Like I'm thinking the Kevin Lee fight or the Edson Barboza fight where the pressure and the striking forces mistakes out of the opponent. Then what does he have other than toughness and an outmoded willingness to play guard and stay on his back?
Yeah. And meanwhile, we have a Beneil Dariush who is probably in his prime.
Weirdly enough, yeah.
I mean, when you saw him get knocked out by Alexander Hernandez, I'm sorry, Sriram, it happened. Are you thinking this man is going to go on the longest and impressive streak of his career after this? Because I was not thinking that.
I'd love to say yes, but that would be a lie.
Shortly after a fight where he got 10-8'd by Evan Dunham, who would then go on to retire shortly afterwards.
I know. What the fuck? It's been really strange now that I'm just looking at it all on paper. And then before that, he got knocked out by Edson Barboza. It was a terrible run.
Like, yeah, 2.5 years ago was seriously like, is Beneil Dariush done?
And now we're asking...
If he'd lost to Thiago Moises, he might well have been cut.
Yeah. And now we're asking, is he going to James Vick Tony Ferguson?
Yeah.
So what is it? What's kept Benny Dariush alive? Or what makes this his prime? Why do you say that? I mean, obviously the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the results, it's a 6-fight win streak. It's got 2 KOs and 2 subs in there. And this is the thing, is that we've been trying to, like, pass through the lens of deterioration, I think, when we've been looking at him, because, in the Moises fight, we were like, oh yeah, he's, and, admitted, and probably the Dober fight as well, we were like, well, he can't trust his chin anymore, he's lost confidence in his striking, and, he's just having to resort to his wrestling. And I think that is probably reasonably true of those 3 fights, Moises, Dober, and Camacho. But then we had the Drakkar close fight. And honestly, partially, I think Dariush has not really gotten his confidence in his striking back. But I think what we are seeing from him is an example of someone who has, what we said all the time. Someone who minimizes risk by putting everything into their shots now.
Yes.
Because Beneil Dariush is a lunatic.
Yeah. That does seem to be the thing. Like, the gateway into his prime, if this is it, and it's hard to argue that it isn't, was just like a loss of fear.
That's the thing. I don't think it's loss of fear. I think he is more fearful than he was when he was trying to, like, outpoint Edson Barboza,
but it's just,
or having his technical war with Michael Johnson. That now he's like, oh shit, I've got to go for it, and then people are just like, what is going on?
Yeah,
getting blown out of the water.
I mean, he himself, it's still one of the funniest and slash scariest post-fight interviews ever. But I think it was after Close, or maybe it was after Holtzman. He was like, I don't know what comes over me. I just see red. It kind of scares even me when I start murdering people.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, it has sort of the feel of like Jorge Masvidal's like Second Coming, where it's like, he just like leans into maybe some like power that was there the entire time. But I think you may be honest. Like the reasons are different. It's that Dariush is now just like unwilling to, he's unwilling to consent to like lose a striking battle. And I think he knows more than ever that he might get knocked out. So he just puts it all on the damn line. It's a gambit every single time. But then he also pairs that with, I think his wrestling is better than ever.
Yes.
And that pairs very, very well with the insane, recklessly aggressive striking and pressure that he puts on people.
That, I think, is probably just the real turning point for this fight, right?
Yeah.
Because if he's going to go nuts on the feet against Tony Ferguson, I'm not sure that. Problem is with Dariush is that there's always going to be a reasonable amount of risk associated with that. Not simply because he's swinging with full force at people.
Yeah.
Because he's just not that durable. So, like, there is a significant chance that, like, Ferguson could still knock him out in an exchange. Even if he's not a great counterpuncher, he still hits really hard.
Yep.
I would imagine. And that doesn't go away.
Even with Charles Oliveira, he was trading shots with him.
Yeah. But it's the wrestling. It's the fact that Dariush was able to wrestle and control and eventually tire out a really good counter scrambler in Diego Ferreira.
Yeah. Who may himself be reaching the end of his physical prime. Seems to be the case, but that's definitely, we think, Tony Ferguson as well.
Yeah. But there seems to be no reason to assume why he couldn't also do that to Tony Ferguson, because Tony Ferguson just spent 3 rounds being controlled by Charles Oliveira.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think that's it, to be honest. Dariush is going to bring insanity, and he's also going to bring wrestling. And he is one of the better top control grapplers in the division. I mean, as remarkable as Gregor Gillespie's comeback was last weekend, and it does sort of add a little perspective to Dariush's win over Diego Ferreira, you got to say that Dariush honestly did the more impressive job of just consistently out-wrestling and out-grappling him. And even at his best, Tony Ferguson's ground game would work against a fighter like Dariush much the same way that Diego Ferreira's was supposed to. It's, scrambles through offense, creating distance, creating angles by being able and willing to chain attacks together. And then do something with the scramble, and Dariush was just one step ahead of Diego Ferreira the entire way. He anticipated every single scramble and won them. So yeah. It's gonna be weird though, cause like, he's also gonna be like getting tired as he always does.
Yeah, we could get a super strange third round.
Yeah. Tony Ferguson is still insanely tough, and I don't know, man. It's very strange, but yeah, I'm gonna take Dariush. I also think there's a not insignificant chance that Dariush could be the guy who, like, could end up being the first guy to knock T-Ferg out. He can go in there and land exactly the same kind of shots Justin Gaethje was landing. He is kind of a lot like Justin Gaethje in a weird way, in that he is like he heavily prefers his power punches. He doesn't throw a lot of bullshit output. But they are like aimed power punches. This is what has won him exchanges in all of these recent fights. He has head movement baked into his shots because he really relies on weight transfer. It's fully committed weight transfer, but he sights his shots up and he will land them mid-exchange. It's not unlike a sort of, I don't know, a hybrid of the new Justin Gaethje and the old one. But, he's going to land clean on Tony Ferguson, I think, early on. So it should be crazy. Honestly, I'm not that excited about this one just because I don't think I really enjoy seeing Tony Ferguson fight these days. So I would like to see something different, but not expecting it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I like Neal Dariush more than I like Tony Ferguson.
Sure,
but I'm glad to see that he's getting his time in the spotlight, that he's earned it.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not sure that I really. We've been going into all these. Tony made his name as someone who was really thrilling to watch, and it's felt uncomfortable watching him for a while now, and it's just getting worse.
Yeah, the toughness is still there. It's just that the body is not keeping up. Yep. We'll see. It just sucks to see. It sucks to see a guy who was a contender for a fucking decade get turned into a stepping stone before your eyes. And that's very much what's happening to Tony Ferguson right now. All these people are coming in. They finally get that big name on their record. And it just kind of sucks that it's Tony Ferguson's when he never got that. He never even got that shot at the title, before it was way too late. All right.
Yep. Very true.
Let's very quickly then talk about Shane Burgos, Edson Barboza. I think up front, the dynamic is pretty straightforward.
Is it?
Well, in that, Shane Burgos will try to pressure, and Edson Barboza is allergic to that.
Shane Burgos is so slow, though.
He is slow, yes. But he is going to put intense pressure on Edson Barboza, and so there's high potential, I think, for him to get Barboza galloping. Especially
does he go above the speed limit, though?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we saw, say in his fight with Calvin Kattar, that as the fight goes on, the pressure gets more intense, and we saw Kattar get put into galloping mode a bit in that second round, and it didn't work out for him. Is Barboza as fast, by the way, at featherweight? He's not really been.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not really been speedy Barboza the way we saw at lightweight. He's been much more of a sit-down puncher.
Yeah, but we've never seen. Have we ever really seen Burgos against a good kicker?
That's an interesting question. Cub Swanson's an okay kicker. Not really. Not anyone who stands out the way Barboza does.
Like Charles Rosa.
He is himself a very willing kicker. He loves
the willing kicker, but I wouldn't necessarily. He's several tiers below Edson Barboza. Let's say,
as are most MMA fighters.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think you're probably right. It's one of those things where people are going to be surprised to see that Burgos is... Well, maybe they won't be surprised, but Burgos is going to be visibly larger than Barboza.
Yeah.
And it's going to be difficult for Barboza to... Barboza is going to have to punch with him before he kicks with him.
That could work out.
Barboza, even though he does hit harder at featherweight, is still not a knockout puncher.
No, he hasn't gotten it done yet.
So I think, if this is going to be mostly boxing exchanges, also Burgos is a good low kicker.
Yep. Which Justin Gaethje combined well with pressure. If he can
keep Barboza circling and then just kick his leg as he circles.
Mm-hmm. I think Justin Gaethje showed how effective that can be combined with pressure, just being willing to kick with Barboza. I think Burgos is willing to do everything with everyone, to be honest.
Yep.
Whatever their A game is. Yeah, it could work out for Barboza in exchanges. He is not, when he actually sits down and commits to it, a bad counterpuncher. He throws nice, tight combinations. He can certainly replicate that left hook that Kurt Holobaugh sat Burgos down with. He's got a great left hook. We saw that all over his fight with Anthony Pettis several years ago. But yeah, I actually think this is one of those things where, maybe what an overall bad trend could work out for Burgos. I'm not sure of this trend yet, but I think we saw a much less thoughtful Shane Burgos than ever against Josh Emmett. He was like not careful in the slightest about his distance in that fight. I think he got frustrated with Emmett's footwork, and he literally just like walked into shit for the rest of the fight. But he did it so insistently, he made some moments happen. And here I think the biggest thing is to back Barboza up. So if he comes in that foolishly single-minded, I think it's more likely to actually work for him here than it did against Emmett.
Yep, tend to agree. As you know, others like Kevin Lee have shown, just raw aggression.
Yep.
Raw, consistent aggression, if you can stick to it, is not good for Edson Barboza.
Yep. All right, especially because, and we have not mentioned this as often as we should, maybe because it's, actually no. I was going to say, we haven't taken note as often as we should of the Apex Center Octagon. This is actually a larger cage. This one's taking place in Houston. So, maybe that figures in to a couple of these fights. It's a hell
makes
of
me
a...
actually favor Charles Oliveira slightly more.
Right, yeah, I agree. Yeah, although having said that, all the good moments against the cage Chandler has created were in the even larger Bellator cage. So he's not uncomfortable, certainly, in that size of a fighting arena. But yeah, here I'm not sure that maybe gives Barboza a bit more of a chance, but if it's just it's a unidirectional game plan on the table for Shane Burgos here, and I think he is, even at his worst, capable of taking that. And so far, tough enough not to be finished, so gotta pick him. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, it is on to recaps. We've got Michelle Waterson versus Marina Rodriguez, or Rodriguez. Alex Morono did the flabby Justin Gaethje all over Donald Cerrone's poor face. Neal Magney is a bona fide contender, and fuck anyone who says otherwise. All of that and more after this.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. You can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher, things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Heavy Hands. We are looking back now. I don't know, I keep mentioning it, Phil, without actually prepping you. I don't know if did you catch the Canelo fight?
I haven't actually.
Pretty good.
I mean, I pretty much know all I need to from Twitter.
Pretty good. It's sort of like
Joe Saunders was easily outboxing Canelo before getting unfortunately caught by Lucky Punch.
It was honestly I think this was pretty predictable going in, very similar to Canelo's fight with Erislandy Lara, who is a fighter I have great respect for because, like many of my favorite fighters, he's really good and even more boring. So yeah, but I think Canelo is better than ever at taking advantage of small openings, even if an opponent is somewhat outmaneuvering him. And Canelo's uppercuts, man, probably the best uppercuts in boxing. And he has for a long time been one of the cleanest offensive technicians and defensive technicians. Canelo is just a technical wunderkind. He's Eddie Reynoso has done like a phenomenal job schooling him. He's always had such pretty looking boxing technique. But finding little openings with those uppercuts is what sealed the deal for him. And that'll teach you folks. Make your head movements small and subtle like Canelo's, not big and obvious like Billy Joe Saunders. Easier said than done. What about the UFC, though? Mahina Rodriguez, as I have decided to start pronouncing her name, she beat Michelle Waterson pretty easily. What did you say before, Phil, about Michelle and Jeff Neal? You had some remark about...
They bumped into each other on the way to the locker room, and dropped their note cards for themselves, one of which said, "Clinch and wrestle a lot," and the other one said, "Whatever you do, don't clinch and wrestle." And they each picked up the other person's card and walked unwittingly off to their fights.
Yes, sort of a doomed meet cute. Fuck you, Knockout Ned. How dare you? How dare you persuade us to credit Michelle Waterson's wrestling when she's not even going to use it? The frame of Rodriguez seemed to make her very uncomfortable, Phil. She didn't like the pressure. She didn't like the reach. I don't even think Rodriguez did a particularly good job of sizing up the openings Waterson was giving her. Like, for example, she really wanted that right hook as Waterson was pulling out, and over and over and over. The opening was there for the exact same kick that Rose Namajunas sat Waterson down with. When she was just turning completely side on, giving up her stance, and any offensive weapon to keep the opponent off other than that little side kick, which worked way more than it should have against Rodriguez. Even so, she should have been throwing that right kick at the end of exchanges way more than she did. But the big problem was it didn't really matter how Rodriguez fought. She came into this with a lot of set advantages on the feet, and it was on Waterson to make this a wrestling match. And on the one hand, you're kind of tempted to say Rodriguez's defensive wrestling looked better, but on the other hand, she really just sniffed him out in the first layer, the way Angela Hill did. And the chain wrestling that does make Waterson an effective wrestler and grappler only showed up once. When it showed up, it was effective. But
and Rodriguez looked shockingly inert on the ground as well.
Of course.
When it did happen, which made the whole performance all the more confusing.
Yeah, just coming in, we knew that, right? I even said, one of my reasons for picking her was that her inertness on the ground might save her in the long run, because at least she's not going to give up any openings. That put Waterson in the position of just having to get 3 rounds worth at least of takedowns and survive the rest. She's clearly tough as shit, Michelle Waterson. We knew that already, but yet another reminder.
We didn't call that out, but yeah, Jesus.
She's so tough, mentally and physically. Yes. This was a fight where it seemed like she was on the cusp of being knocked out almost the entire time. Never happened. Never even came all that close. Always ready to fire back, but it just wasn't. She just didn't create enough tie-ups. I'm not really sure what was going on there other than just a simple discomfort with the reach, which is funny because another fight we're going to talk about in a minute, the other half of that meet cute, the reach has the exact opposite effect on the opponent. So I don't know how to really explain this. Waterson herself talked about focusing on her wrestling, and it did not yield results in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I believe Rian Wagner mentioned that one of the reasons why he thinks, and we'll get to this in a minute, everyone clinches with Neal Magney is that he doesn't feel that great in the clinch when people first go in there with him. Mm-hmm. And then, oh yeah, I can keep doing this. And they can't. They don't realize until later, he just sucks them in with how bad he seems to be at first.
Yeah, I think
they're suddenly oh man, I'm really tired, and he's got double underhooks and his shoulders under my chin, and he's 9 feet tall. And I think this might be kind of the opposite in that whenever Rodriguez locked up with, whenever Watson locked up with Rodriguez in any form, she was just oh man, this girl is strong.
Yeah. And to Rodriguez's credit,
to be in the clinch with her.
Again, she was at least ready for the takedowns, and she reacted again much the same way Angela Hill did. And it's important to remember that Angela Hill, as we pointed out last week, stuffed something like 17 of 18 takedowns from Waterson. It was all in that first layer. That was the space where we said Rodriguez had very effective wrestling defense. But how are you not prepared for that? It's a little disappointing or a little confusing.
I think it was also that Rodriguez was dictating a lot of clinches, and I think Waterson was, as opposed to some people who are who are, when someone starts dictating a phase of the fight, they're like, oh yeah, we're fighting here, are we? I think Waterson was just like, no,
yeah.
I think I don't want to do this. I'm going to go back to trying kicking her in the head.
She only wanted
because she kept running her into the clinch up against the fence and just forcing her upright where none of her takedowns worked.
Yeah, all she has left at that point is the head and arm throw, which probably isn't going to work on a big giant like Rodriguez. Yeah, I think you're right. The first layer was, I think, more impactful than Angela Hill's was. The consequences in the clinch that we talked about added to that disincentivization of going for too many takedowns. I think that's why we saw so many fewer of them than we did against Hill. And I think you're right as well that Waterson really wants to. She's tough, but she really wants to create things on her own terms. She's kind of like Anthony Pettis, where like you can kind of just outmaneuver her, and she's not going to go
use
away.
The toughness.
Mm-hmm, go on.
Yeah, you use the toughness to survive until you can fight again on your own terms.
Yes, but is not necessarily going to be doing anything but being tough as long as her opponent is commanding the initiative of the fight. I think that's what we saw. Okay. Let's talk very quickly about the co-main event. As I said on Twitter, I'll repeat it here because you know I love my own jokes. Alex Morono asked the question, what if Justin Gaethje had a torso like a sack of flour? And the answer was, still works. At least against this version of Donald Cerrone. The counter right hook, it's there. Cowboy squares up and falls into the pocket. He has done this forever. He has used it to great effect against recent opponents, like, for example, against Alexander Hernandez, because it puts him in a position, sort of like the shift we talked about before. It puts him in a position to follow up with any one of his weapons. And if you flee from that initiatory step in, that penetration step into the pocket, then yeah, Cerrone can string together beautiful combinations to just strafe you as you try to get away. If you just stand your ground though, and wait for Cerrone to step square into the pocket, you can just hit him on the chin. Even if you have really bad punching form and you are throwing just the ropiest goddamn punches I ever saw, you can hit him. Because he's squared up and he's tall and he doesn't have great defense. That's what happens. Anything else? Anything to add?
Like, Cerrone is someone who has, like we mentioned, he has to box with people at welterweight to set his kicks up. If he was fighting an Alex Morono equivalent at lightweight, he would have much more of a chance to just like raw kick him at range before Morono even got close to him. Mm-hmm. This, you just saw the boxing exchanges at the beginning, the punching exchanges at the beginning, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this happens with welterweights.
Yep.
And yeah, Cerrone is obviously, he is shot now.
Yeah. And it's tough. It's tough to make that call because we've been waiting for it forever just to say definitively that Cerrone is shot. It's tough because it was still a style matchup dependent kind of thing. Like it's the kind of way Cerrone has always lost. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just a lower level test, that he has failed than ever before. It's like, what was the Anthony Pettis fight you pointed out? Pettis losing to Clay Collard, which was very much in line with losses he has suffered before, but none of those losses were to...
Clay Collard is really very similar to Max Holloway.
Right.
Fighter.
But he is most definitely not Max Holloway. He's very similar to Max Holloway if you,
punches a lot.
Yeah. If you, have really thick glasses and you take them off, you might think you're watching a Max Holloway fight when you look at a Clay Collard performance. So yeah, that's
when they fought each other, it was a mirror match, let me tell you.
Yeah, Collard and Holloway, you mean? Yes. That's the point of the whole. Morono is literally a much flabbier Justin Gaethje. Is that yes, it's the same kind of performance that worked for the same reasons, but it's not Justin Gaethje, and that matters when you're estimating how much longer Cerrone is going to be at this. Not to mention, just results-wise, what is this, 6 in a row?
Something like that. Yeah, so someone mentioned Jeff Neal as potential opponent for boy on Twitter, and I do approve. Yes, that is a good plan.
As I responded, I believe that was Assured Fob was the screen name, and I believe I said, that is evil Greg Jackson tier cruelty.
Yeah, I mean, my personal picks would be Chaos Williams or Alex Pereira if he stays at this weight class. If he wants to go back to lightweight, I think Mark Jacasey or Nasrat Hakparast, I think, would both make good choices. Hakparast, I think, is a good one because he's a southpaw.
Yeah. Well, so is Jeff Neal, which I was like, everything
Jeff
about
Neal's
this
like
spells.
he's a technician. Ooh, I'm going to beat him with my technicalness.
Yeah.
Nasrat Hakparast would be like, I'm going to punch him because I'm a southpaw.
Evil.
No, like, the rules for these things, I will clarify. If Donald Cerrone says that this is his retirement fight, he can have a retirement fight that makes sense. A rematch with Diaz or something. He can fight some old person.
Well, here's the thing.
He's like, no, I want to keep going. I want to have a fight against someone relevant. And he should fight Nasrat Hakparast.
And here's the thing. Cerrone did say, because this, of course, was the kind of performance where people are like, you good, man? How much longer you think you're going to do this? And he said, he thinks he'll know and will announce it going in. So he thinks that moment will arrive. But the question is not, does Donald Cerrone think he will retire? The question is, how much more does he still think he has? And I think he pretty definitively said, this isn't it. Which leads me to believe that the next one may not be it either. He's going to have a hard time letting go, Donald Cerrone, and I wouldn't blame him for that.
There's only one man who can help him do that. No. Well, sorry, there's four. I mean,
there's four and probably even more. Let's list them now. No. Enough southpaws, enough crazy young athletes. Make the Diego Sanchez fight. I've changed my mind. I want to see it now. It seems fair now.
Diego Sanchez is no longer in the UFC.
Oh, what a shame. Maybe he could fight Josh Fabia. I would enjoy him getting back on the winning track that way. Okay, let's talk more about the Neal versus Neal battle. Neal Magney, Jeff Neal. Everyone does this, Phil. Everyone clinches with Neal Magney. And I think you're right. I think it is in part a response to the reach, because being on the end of Magney's reach feels terrible. Nothing is hurting all that much, but he can just touch you when you can't touch him, and he does it constantly. Very high output. There were also attritional tools, especially in this fight. I thought he did a really good job of that, actually. Certainly compared to Jeff Neal, who I will say once again is maybe the most committed headhunter in the UFC. He doesn't fucking hit anything but the head, and it would help him so much. So much. I mean, we had another example on this card, Phil Hawes, who I thought was a lost cause.
Yeah. Big
part of his success was that being a power puncher.
That would be a good ring name.
What's that? The Lost Cause, Phil Hawes? That would. I think I might have a hard time selling it to him. But a big part of his success last weekend was being an innately hard hitter. He hit the body. It worked tremendously well. It sapped all the energy from Kyle Daukaus in like a round in which Hawes himself was hurt. Jeff Neal could have a similar effect. Just judging the few strikes he landed in this fight, strikes, by the way, which I think should have earned him the decision, although I'm not too upset about it. We can get into that too. But he hit Neal Magney with some huge left hands. And it is only Neal Magney's celebrated toughness that kept him in a position, or that kept him in that fight. If Jeff Neal would hit the body, it would make such an impact, with that power and that hand speed. I don't know why he doesn't do it.
If he kicked the leg.
That too.
Or kicked the body, as Lorenz Larkin famously did to great effect.
Yes. And it's Neal Magney. It's there, man. Like, if you're going to do it at any time, do it against the guy who is 98% legs and torso. That's the target. Anyway, Neal Magney, really good volume, good attritional weapons. He kicked the body a lot. He even punched the body quite a lot for a guy with his size, his height. And so then the question becomes, how do I get out of this zone of, how do I get out of this hailstorm? And everyone decides to clinch. And Jeff Neal is no exception. He's done it
before. He did it early as well.
He did it early. Yeah.
It wasn't even like he was getting tired. He was just like, nope, got to rush in against this guy.
Yeah.
His power's too much for me.
I called out on the Vivi how he had done a good bit of that against Kevin Holland, too, which, of course, was another tall, lanky guy who beat him before the UFC. And but he kind of does it to everyone. I don't even think it's just the height. He does kind of clinch with everyone. He just usually beats people there. And I think what did you say it was? Was it Dan Martin who said about the weakness drawing people in?
No, it was Ian Wagner.
It was Ryan. I think that's exactly right as well. Like Neal Magney, he's like a willow branch. You can just bend him and push him around and he just flops into the cage and he just kind of sucks you in. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't get discouraged. He sort of has a similar mindset to like Demetrius Johnson in that he's got this like compendium of techniques in his head and he will just sort of calmly cycle through for as long as the fight lasts, trying to compete in whatever fight you put on him. And he does that exceptionally well in the clinch. He has for a very long time now. And he ended up making Jeff Neal look not much better than the Leech looked against him. Similar mistakes, similar result.
I'm one of a bunch of people that I think you two actually scored this fight for Neal.
Jeff Neal?
Jeff Neal, yeah. Mm-hmm. Not Magney.
I thought he won the first 2 rounds pretty clearly, actually, yes.
He landed I thought the first round was close. He landed the more telling shots.
Yes.
And the second round, I think he hurt Magney really badly at the beginning.
Yep.
He clearly kind of lost the fight. He was more discouraged, beaten up, and was losing really badly by the end.
Yes. If there was one definitive round, it was round 3.
He fought the fight in such a stupid way that I don't have any sympathy for him at all.
I said before,
it is pure Woodley versus Shield stuff.
Uh-huh.
Even the fact that if you're going to have rounds like that, you need to be cognizant of what the judges are looking for, and don't have like a minute of clean offense and then 4 minutes of the other guy doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because the judges will have forgotten by the end.
To give Jeff Neal the fight would have been rewarding athleticism, which, as we all know, is cheating and should not be sanctioned.
Because I'm going to try doing this, I have now opened up the 2021 Handies folder and put in Jeff Neal for his submission into Worst Brain Thinking in a Fight award.
Somebody brought that up. This is like, I don't know if you ever watched Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst, but they'll watch 3 awful B movies, and then they have to pick which one survives, and the one that they all hate the most gets destroyed sometimes. They break their own rules. And frequently you will come up with an episode where the decision is between a movie which is just consistently baffling and weird, but never really reaches that height, and a movie which is kind of dull and mediocre, which is what most bad movies are anyway, but just has a sensationally stupid ending that you just can't stop thinking about. And that really, I think, will be the contest between Jeff Neal and Petr Yan. It's
yes.
Who, is fucking up nonstop for 15 minutes worse than fighting brilliantly and then fucking up so colossally you lose your title. That's
definitely Petr Yan.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm in the pocket for Petr Yan as well. But still, it's a compelling contest that I will be looking forward to discussing at the end of the year. Yeah, I think the way I put it, just as a divisional kind of thing, is that Neal Magney, he's a gatekeeper. Not anymore, but he'll probably be thrust back towards the gate when he does fight the top 5 opponent he's looking for.
Also, I just say how much I respect his call out.
Who did he call out again?
Self-awareness. Called out Vicente Luque. Who, we said this, I said this last time, Magney is not someone who is impossible to look good against. He's got certain people absolutely wipe him off the face of the planet. And I'm very sure Vicente Luque is one of them. Like, he's a power low kicker. He's relentlessly aggressive. He has huge power in his hands. He throws in combination. He's really tough.
Yeah.
And he has a really good ground game. Like, he's going to wipe him out. I respect it so much.
And then Neal will be back to his post at the gate, you know, like the good soldier he is. But that's the thing. I agree. I think whether it's Luque or someone else, that's going to happen. Because Neal Magney, you either look terrible against him or you're an elite fighter. That's it. He is the ideal of gatekeeperness.
I need to find out who he should have called out. I'm sorry, I don't mean to slow the...
No, you're fine.
Who's the... Like... He has a I'm sorry, Fight Site, don't kill me. He has a way better chance against Leon Edwards than he does against Vicente Luque.
Oh, that would have been a great call out.
Yeah.
Honestly, they already semi-booked it too. That would have been a great call out. He has a real shot in that fight. Another guy who's willing to go everywhere. He probably has a
better chance against Stephen Thompson. Oh man, it would be incredible if he fought Stephen Thompson and Stephen Thompson just somehow sleepwalked into the clinch. It's just like, must clinch.
I would love to see that. Man, if only it were a different point in Stephen Thompson's career when he was like just learning his wrestling and then he would, like with Matt Brown, he tried to wrestle him a little bit. That would be so beautiful. It might happen. You never know. The power of Neal Magney. He's an ancient trickster god. Anyway, my point is, if Neal Magney's a gatekeeper, the point of the gatekeeper is to ask the question of up-and-coming fighters, can you pass this IQ test? Can you make the right decisions? Because this is an established fighter. There's endless tape on him, and you know what kind of fighters beat him, and you can see how they did it. And if that's the point, then I have no problem with Jeff Neal losing a decision I thought he otherwise won because he did not pass the IQ test. He didn't make any of the right meaningful changes to his game. This was a stagnant performance. And I think that's why he lost the cards. Because he was made to look bad. But I also think it's why he sort of deserved to lose in like a divisional sense. Because if you can't do this, why do I want to see you fighting for a title? You're not going to make the right changes unless the right matchup just falls into your lap. People are just going to game plan around you. So, that's about it. I mean, we could talk about Gregor Gillespie versus Carlos Diego Ferreira and Jin Young Park. Very fun, outboxing and out-wrestling performance against Tafon Nchukwu, but we have zero time. We've already gone well over, as we always do.
We should say that if you haven't seen Gillespie...
Oh, yeah.
Ferreira, you should watch it because it is fucking incredible.
Yes. It sort of fits into a pattern of us. Next time we talk about CDF, we'll probably get to talk about his prime coming to an end as well, like Tony Ferguson, because it fits into a pattern set by his previous fight. But, I mean, if you want to see somebody stage an absolutely remarkable comeback, whether or not you like Gregor Gillespie, you will appreciate his toughness and his heart. Okay.
Just again, like CDF's last fight, just some of the prettiest, most fun, most exciting grappling that you've seen in recent mixed martial arts, or probably ever in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, honestly.
Just really one of the best fights of the year so far, even if it only went 2 rounds and the second round was mostly one-way traffic. That first round was incredible.
Yep. Yeah. If you want to see a guy push a pace that he cannot possibly maintain, but do some incredible things in the process and create some incredible exchanges on the ground, you will enjoy it. Okay.
Watch another guy come back from the brink of death.
Right. Anything to plug, Phil, before we wrap up?
Oh, not this week, I don't think.
I will probably be writing something about UFC 262. I haven't decided what yet. It may not be a really big in-depth technical thing. It might be more like my Tyron Woodley piece from a few weeks ago, which, frankly, way more people read and enjoyed than my more technical stuff often gets. But I just keep your eyes peeled, bloodyelbow.com. If I don't put something up, Lord knows that Ed Gallows seems likely to produce some fascinating wrestling analysis, probably about the main event. So check out that stuff on Bloody Elbow.
I have just seen that friend of the show, Elliot, aka Patrick Wyman II, has put up an article on Charles Oliveira. I haven't read it yet because it looks like it's literally just went up.
It's bound to be good, though. So go over there, give Tom Elliott your page views as well. He deserves them. All right, guys. We will talk to you next week when UFC 262 will hopefully have given us lots of post-fight stuff to recap. And we'll also be looking forward to Font versus Garbrandt. Yan Xiaonan versus Carla Esparza. They're doing Ricardo Ramos versus Bill Algeo. They remade that one. Jack Hermanson versus Edmund Shabazian. Doesn't look like a bad card, folks, although Lord knows a lot of these are only on this card because they were moved having been canceled previously. So that's the era we're in. Brace yourselves, but if a few of those make it through, we'll have a good time previewing them, and we hope you will join us for that. Find us on social media. Phil's at Evil Greg Jackson. I'm Boxing Bush, BUSCH. Again, find our writing on BloodyUnderground.com, and check out our Patreon, bonus episodes, blah, blah, blah. We'll talk to you guys next week. If you came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.